So Dave and Jim were a couple of drinking buddies who worked as aircraft mechanics in Melbourne. One day, the airport got fogged in, and they were stuck in the hangar with nothing to do. Dave said, "Man, I wish we had something to drink." Jim says, "Me too. You know, I've heard you can drink jet fuel and get a buzz. You wanna try it?" With nothing better to do, they shrugged and poured themselves a couple of glasses of high-octane booze. Before long, they were completely smashed. The next morning, Dave wakes up and is surprised at how good he feels. In fact, he feels great. No hangover, no headache, no side effects. Just clear-headed and fresh. Then the phone rings. It's Jim. Jim says, "Hey, how do you feel this morning?" Dave says, "I feel great. How about you?" Jim says, "I feel great, too. You don't have a hangover?" Dave says, "No, that jet fuel is great stuff. No hangover, nothing. We should do this more often." Jim replies, "Yeah, well, there's just one thing." Dave asks, "What's that?" Jim says, "Have you farted yet?" Dave says, "No." Jim says, "Well, don't, because I'm in Ohio." So, a woman goes to her boyfriend's parents' house for dinner. This is to be her first time meeting the family, and she is very nervous. They all sit down and begin eating a fine meal. The woman is beginning to feel a little discomfort, thanks to her nervousness and the broccoli casserole. The gas pains are almost making her eyes water. Left with no other choice, she decides to relieve herself a bit and lets out a dainty fart. It wasn't loud, but everyone at the table heard the poof. Before she even had a chance to be embarrassed, her boyfriend's father looked over at the dog that had been snoozing at the woman's feet and said in a rather stern voice, "Skippy." The woman thought, "This is great," and a big smile came across her face. A couple of minutes later, she was beginning to feel the pain again. This time, she didn't even hesitate. She let a much louder and longer fart rip. The father again looked at the dog and yelled, "Damn it, Skippy." Once again, the woman smiled and thought yes. A few minutes later, the woman had to let another one rip. This time, she didn't even think about it. She let rip a fart that rivaled a train whistle blowing. Once again, the father looked at the dog with disgust and yelled, "Damn it, Skippy, get away from her before she shits on you." So a man rents a room. He pays extra on the condition the landlady prepare his work lunch every day. So on the first day, she packs him a sandwich on normal white bread, using the last night's leftovers of meatloaf, adding in some fruit and a bottle of soda. When he comes home, he politely tells her that it wasn't quite enough food for him. The next day, she makes 2 sandwiches, turkey this time, and adds a container of salad, some crackers and peanut butter, and a slice of cake. That night, he told her most apologetically that while the food was delicious, he found himself still hungry, and could she possibly put in a little more tomorrow? The next day, she uses long slices of sourdough bread to construct a pair of huge sandwiches and includes crackers, peanut butter, chips and dip, veggies and ranch dressing, and a whole 2-liter bottle of soda. That night, he smiles very kindly and tells her it was almost enough food. The next day, throwing caution to the wind and idly wondering if she's feeding his entire workplace, she cuts a loaf of bread in half and stuffs it with pounds of meat and cheese, an entire head of lettuce, tomatoes, onions, other vegetables, sauces, everything. That night, he gives her a dry look and says, "So, I see we're back down to 1 sandwich." So a new guy starts working at the local mental asylum. After giving him some general indications, the director tells him to ask any question he may have. Yes, Director, I have one. How do we know if a patient is cured and ready to leave the asylum? Well, says the director, once per year, we gather some of them and ask them a question. If they answer it correctly, then they are cured and are free to go. The director gathers 3 patients for a demonstration. So, resident 121, what is 6 times 6? 1,000, says the first one. Well, no, that's another year here for you. The director proceeds to ask the second patient the same question. Well, the answer is February. My God. No, it isn't. You are staying here 1 more year. Finally, the director asks the question to the third patient. What is 6 times 6? Obviously, it's 36. The director cheers the third patient and proceeds to communicate the asylum staff he is ready to leave. The new guy asks the patient before he leaves, "Good job answering correctly. How did you know it?" Well, it was easy. I divided 1,000 by February. So on a bustling highway, a woman was cruising along at a brisk 75 miles per hour. To her surprise, a vigilant motorcycle policeman appeared in her rearview mirror, seemingly tailing her with an air of authority. Rather than heeding the unwelcome presence, she decided to defy the odds and floored the accelerator, the wind whipping through her hair as her speedometer climbed. Unfazed by the pursuit, she glanced back to discover not 1, but 2 motorcycle officers now in hot pursuit. Determined to outwit her pursuers, she pushed the limits even further, pushing her speed to a daring 90 miles per hour. The thrill of the chase seemed to escalate as she looked again, only to find 3 tenacious cops hot on her trail. In a stroke of luck, she spotted a beacon of hope. A gas station looming on the horizon. With nerves of steel, she screeched to a dramatic halt and, seizing the opportunity, darted into the refuge of the ladies' room. 10 minutes later, she emerged innocently from the restroom, confident in her cunning maneuver. To her surprise, the trio of law enforcement officers awaited her outside. Without skipping a beat, she looked them in the eye and, with a coy smile, remarked, "I'll bet none of you thought I would make it."
My God. You're so awesome, Lawrence Lim.
It's Lawrence Lim with the W.